आज़ादी के 75वें वर्ष के अमृत महोत्सव की इस पावन पूर्व संध्या पर स्वतंत्रता पूर्व युग में प्रसिद्ध भारतीय वैज्ञानिक पर निर्मित डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म की प्रस्तुति समारोह को सुशोभित करने हेतु विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग के आदरणीय सचिव महोदय, हमारे केंद्र के शासी निकाय के अध्यक्ष महोदय, गण्यमान्य अतिथिगण जो ऑनलाइन माध्यम से जुड़े हुए हैं तथा यहाँ उपस्थित केंद्र के निदेशक महोदया, कार्मिक सदस्यगण एवं छात्रों छात्राएं, आप सभी को हार्दिक स्वागत एवं अभिनंदन करती हूँ। A warm welcome to respected Secretary Sir, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, Chairman, Governing Body of the Center, Director Ma'am, dignitaries and guests present here to grace the occasion, and those who are also attending the program offline, and to the staff members and students of the center. I extend a warm welcome on this auspicious occasion of current curtain raiser ceremony of the documentary film on illustrious Indian scientists in pre-independence era, being held on the eve of the 75th year of independence, which is celebrated as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. We initiate the program by singing the National Anthem. I request Shoham and Anisha to come on stage. I also request you all to kindly stand up and lend your voice to the anthem. हम कार्यक्रम का प्रारंभ राष्ट्रगान से करते हैं। मैं अपने केंद्र की छात्र सोहम और अनिशा से स्टेज पर आने का आग्रह करती हूँ। साथ ही आप सभी को अनुरोध है कि कृपया खड़े होकर राष्ट्रगान को अपनी स्वर प्रदान करें।
भारत भाग्य विधाता, पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा, द्राविड़ उत्कल बंग, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा, उच्छल जलधि तरंग, तब शुभ नामे जागे, तब शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तब जय गाथा, जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता, जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
सभी को धन्यवाद। अब मैं स्वागत भाषण हेतु केंद्र के निदेशक महोदया प्रोफेसर तनुश्री शाह दासगुप्ता से अनुरोध है कि वो कृपया यहाँ आए। नाउ आई रिक्वेस्ट प्रोफेसर तनुश्री शाह दासगुप्ता, डायरेक्टर ऑफ द सेंटर, टू काइंडली डिलीवर द वेलकम एड्रेस।
Dear Dr. Chandrasekhar, our respected DST Secretary, dear Dr. Jagtav, the Chairman of our governing body, dear Dr. Shah, President of Indian National Science Academy, Dr. Nokul Parashar, Director of Vigyan Prashar, all the dignitaries online and offline, all my colleagues and staffs, and dear students, a welcome to the curtain raising ceremony event. This is a memorable event of SNBO Center. As a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebration, SNBO Center decided to organize a set of seminar series on illustrious scientists in the pre-independence era, given by eminent personalities all across this country, and focused on the life and work of our great illuminary scientists. And we thought, based on these very exciting talks, it will be pertinent to come up with a documentary film so that the whole thing can be made more accessible, more popular, and more attractive to the common mass of this country. And in this effort, actually, some 10 seminar talks given by various speakers have been compiled in the form of the documentary film. And today we are going to see the trailer of this documentary film. We are very thankful to all the audience who are online and offline, all the dignitaries, for taking their valuable time out of their busy schedule and be present in this event to grace this very important occasion. Thank you once again, and a warm welcome to this very, very important event. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद मैम। अब मैं माननीय सचिव विज्ञान और प्रौद्योगिकी विभाग भारत सरकार से अनुरोध करती हूँ कि वो कृपया कार्यक्रम का उद्घाटन करें एवं सम्मानित सभा को संबोधित करें। May I now request Secretary Sir, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, to kindly inaugurate the program virtually. We will be pressing a curtain raiser button from our end, and also to kindly address the august gathering.
Go ahead and unravel the program, please. Greetings to all of you. Thank you so much, Director, SN Bose Institute, all the faculty who are assembled here today online and offline. I also could see on the screen Partha, Chandra, and few other colleagues whose cameras are currently on. And I will not be able to see other colleagues, but greetings to all of you. And also very important day today, the eve of the Independence, 75th Independence Day. I'm so delighted to be part of this very important event where the SN Bose Institute has taken up the lead in compiling the various lectures given by eminent personalities in our country into one booklet and one movie that it can remain forever for the next generations to come. While we all have been celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav the entire year since the last 15th August, and as we march tomorrow where we culminate these events into Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav event, where Honorable Prime Minister will address all of us from the Red Fort. We also have been told that while the 75th year celebration is not an end of an event, but it will get into the Amrit Kal, and we will start gearing up towards 100th year of India's independence, which will happen in 2047. I do believe that 25 years is a long time when we look in the forward journey. But also when we look back, even the past 25 years, which we all have witnessed the kind of technological innovations and interventions happened in this planet, have been game changers. We have seen how we graduated from a radio to a transistor to television to pocket mobile phones, which give us the entire world in our hands, which all these transformations happened in less than 25 years. So if we look at the changes happened in 25 years, which are unimaginable, at least to the generation who are seeing it currently today. I know most of us on screen today at least belong to the generation where we never had even a radio at home. To today, a mobile phone does the job of the world radio station. You could hear to any radio station in your mobile phone if you have a smartphone with you. We have never heard of an internet connection or a live telecast, and The first television, at least I have seen myself with my eyes, was in 1977, when a black and white TV, Dynora TV, was at our house. But I think today's generation, if you go and show them, they will not even recognize this, whether it's a television actually. And now we are talking of compilation of the scientific contributions and how our researchers have played a role in India's independence. And we are talking of pre-1900 and during 1900. We are talking of the contributions of S.N. Bose, J.C. Bose, we are talking of Raman. And if we look at the kind of facilities they have, not just to do science, but also using scientific platforms, use it as a freedom movement and mobilizing people to see that British are thrown out of our country. And I'm sure this compilation of lectures by various people, once we run through those 10 lecture series, I'm sure will be the most educative purpose. While I was privileged to listen to some of those lectures already, but certainly today's compilation would go a long way in mobilizing and motivating our next generation, young kids, how scientists and freedom fighters have worked together and how scientists also have participated in the freedom movement. I also had the privilege of listening to K.N.G. Sahasrabudhe some time ago in Calcutta in the same way today or doing the event. In IACS Kolkata, he has really narrated a story on how our scientists contributed to India's freedom. Freedom is not just freedom to enjoy, but freedom also is a responsibility. Today's India's independent country for 75 years now, it is not just that what we do is useful to only Indian population, but the science what we do should reach the entire world. While we have in the West, we also have a lot of traditional knowledge available with us, which were not totally exploited yet. I do believe that these kind of motivational compilations will also tell us the right problems for our scientists to choose. Many a times our scientists also would not be able to choose a right problem, solve the problem. The problems become yesterday's problems and we try to solve tomorrow, which have no relevance. I do believe that this 1 year of celebrations of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav have given us enough impetus and inputs that as we start thinking of research from tomorrow, how we are going to position our research activities for 2047. While these pre-independent activities by the global researchers resulted in many industrial revolutions, but we also have seen the negative impact of these revolutions. We have seen the global warming. When we talk to friends from Ministry of Earth Sciences, the kind of melting of Arctic and increase of sea levels, the carbon dioxide emissions by various industries, including our energy sector, are creating this global warming. I do believe that the learnings of the past will tell us what is that we should do tomorrow, that in 2050, we will not repent for whatever little mistakes we have done during these revolutionary changes in the technologies. It's time that we do introspection to see how every carbon atom we use on this planet would not have any negative impact for tomorrow. While we were so excited to burn coal to produce energy for our requirement, we did not look at the negative impact of the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases. Now, today, if you want to make energy for tomorrow, now we fully understand that this energy is not going to be sustainable. Also, this energy is going to be detrimental for tomorrow. So what is the next energy we are going to put in? Is it the wind? Is it going to be solar? Or is it going to be hydrogen? So these are the challenges we have to pose ourselves. And I can assure all the scientific fraternity on the call today, DST is committed to make sure that every call we give from now on for our 100th year of independence, we make sure that every call will be a game changer by 2047. Again, I would sincerely thank the leadership of SN Bose Institute for giving this opportunity to join virtually on this platform. I'm sure all the audience here would be beneficiaries of this movie, the compilation which has been made by SN Bose Institute. I'm sure our team is sitting there, Parashar, the audience. I do believe that Nakul will take these activities into masses that the school children, the next generation researchers, and even the entire world look at these things and look at India as a role model and India as the next leader. I wish all of you a very happy Independence Day for tomorrow. Thank you. Jai Hind.
बहुमूल्य वक्तव्य के लिए धन्यवाद सर। अब मैं प्रोफेसर BN जगताप, केंद्र की शासी निकाय के अध्यक्ष से इस अवसर पर कुछ शब्द कहने हेतु अनुरोध करती हूँ। May I now request Professor BN Jagatap, Chairman, Governing Body, to say a few words on this occasion.
Thank you. Dr. Chandrasekhar, Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Professor Chandrika Saha, President INSA, Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director Vigyan Prasar, Professor Tanushree Dasgupta, Director of SN Bose Center, National Center, distinguished speakers who have contributed to this series of talks at SN Bose Center, faculty members and students of the center, ladies and gentlemen. Let me add my own words of welcome to you all and extend the greetings on the eve of the 75th Independence Day of our beloved country. Today, on this special occasion, we are proudly remembering the illustrious scientists of pre-independence era and their profound contributions. We take this opportunity to express our deep gratitude to our founding fathers for creating a platform for science and technology for the next generation of scientists, the platform that we all have benefited from. It is also a day when we reiterate our commitment to build further, to take the country to the apex position in the intellectual hierarchy of nations as expressed by Professor P.C. Ray. I take this opportunity to compliment the SN Bose Center and Vigyan Prasad for this function befitting the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Friends, India's freedom movement was very special for its multifaceted response to the British colonial rule. It comprised of politics, arts, and contributions from scientists. The grand objective of the science movement was to do modern science within the framework of nationalism, to awaken the spirit of inquiry and ensure its continuity, and to bring back the past glory and the prosperity. The talks delivered in this series at the SN Bose Center and compiled in this video volume provide glimpses of the history of the nationalistic science movement of India. I strongly believe that these videos of lectures being released today will sensitize the present generation of researchers to rededicate themselves to the achievement of the big dream that the founding fathers had in their mind. Thank you, one and all.
थैंक यू सर। अब प्रोफेसर चंद्रिमा शाह IICB में NAS के JC बोस विशिष्ट चेयर प्रोफेसर और अध्यक्षा इंसा से आग्रह है कि वे इस अवसर पर अपना बहुमूल्य विचार हम सभी के बीच रखने की कृपा करें। I request Professor Chandrima Shah, JC Bose Distinguished Chair, Professor of NAS at IICB and President INSA, to say a few words to mark the occasion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Greetings to all. Professor Sri Chandrasekhar, Professor Shahadar Gupta, Professor Jagtap, Professor Parthu Majumdar, Professor Kankan Bhattacharya, other distinguished guests, students, and friends. First of all, let me thank the SN Bose National Center for Basic Sciences for inviting me to this unique program. This is an honor. I consider the lecture series organized by the center, which forms the basis of the documentary to be launched, is a laudable initiative, but going a step further and documenting them as a film ensures that the message goes beyond the confines of the lecture theater and makes dissemination much more efficient. So I think this is a very unique effort, and this should be propagated to all institutes in the country. Science and technology are among the most influential factors that makes a nation strong, and this is evidenced in history from rise of countries becoming global powers that can provide resources to others. So India has witnessed an age when peaks of progress in science, engineering, technology, and mathematics were touched. Albert Einstein is said to have quoted that we owe a lot to the ancient Indians because they taught us how to count, without which most modern scientific discoveries would have been impossible. Taking the tradition of ancient Indian science forward, many scientists flourished. And the peak of progress in science was touched around the end of 19th and beginning of 20th century. That period is studded with world-class discoveries and inventions of a huge range. One may wonder why the particular period should have been time for the emergence of this kind of renaissance. This may partly be the consequence of increased global exposure, and also at this time, nationalism and emerging sense of self-esteem were growing in the air that must have sparked the minds of many. Life stories of people like Srinivasa Ramanujan, J.C. Bose, P.C. Ray, S.N. Bose, Meghnad Saha, Prashant Mohal, and Nibish are truly inspiring and needs to be told over and over again. And I'm sure the documentary that has been made would tell these stories. And we need to cover more scientists. And I must congratulate S.N. Bose Center for bringing in this novel initiative. And as we celebrate the 75th year of independence, I may quote Professor C.V. Raman from a radio talk in All India Radio, where he said, a study of the history of individual branches of science and of biographies of leading contributors to the development is essential for a proper appreciation of the real meaning and spirit of science. They often afford much more stimulating reading than the most learned treatises on science. This effort to reach the current generation with stories from an era that threw many challenges to scientists will certainly go a long way to inspire the coming generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for your very inspiring words. मैं हमारे बीच उपस्थित विज्ञान प्रसार के निदेशक महोदय डॉक्टर नकुल पराशर से इस अवसर पर अपना वक्तव्य देने हेतु अनुरोध करती हूँ. May I request Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director, Vigyan Prasar, who is present with us today to deliver his speech on the occasion.
Namaskar, respected Dr. Chandrasekhar sir, our dear and honorable Secretary DST, Professor Jagtab, Dr. Chandrima Shaha, Dr. Tanushri Saha, who is the host of this program. And I also see in this August gathering, Partho Da is there, I have Shivaji Da is there with us. Feel very nice and very happy, and particularly when we are celebrating this event on the eve of 75th Indian Independence Day. A series of lectures that have come across and have been compiled in a nice manner, which I'm sure will go a long way, and it will have a shelf life which will be agnostic of time. And it is something, as rightly said by Secretary Sir also, and it's important for us to ensure that such an effort is widely circulated, is widely taken up, and once this has been done, I think there are many more outcomes that we can think and talk about, particularly analyzing how our speakers in this series have spoken about the kind of research that they have done, the kind of content aggregation that they have done, and the way the whole thing has been represented. I think will go a long way and will set up a lot of thoughts and ideas for a lot of research to be done. It's important for us that where we stand today is on the basis of the hard work done by our scientists in a period when they were not given the adequate support. We all know how the kind of hardships that our scientists have faced, and particularly when we talk about Nath Bose, we talk about J.C. Bose, P.C. Ray, and others as well. The way they were treated, the kind of treatment that they were meted, was something which I think if we were in that scenario at that point in time, we would have lost our confidence. but we salute to their spirit of grit, determination, which has gotten us here. And I'm sure this will take us, and this will give us a lot of inspiration for us to carry our scientific research and pursuit despite all kinds of odds that we still would come across. So let's, it's not here that we need to prophetize or summarize about what they've done, but it's time for us to get inspired by those scientists. And I'm sure platforms like India Science, which is a nation's first OTT channel, would certainly be a platform for this, where this film would then reach out to a large outreach that we talk about. We talk about 2 million people and so on and so forth. So many such forums, and I would request that social media is something that we, all of us, should utilize, should take it up, and then help. This effort that this S.N. Bose Institute has done should go a long way. So I request hand-foldedly to all of you that social media is something that is there in our hands, and we should widely circulate it, widely make it possible. Do put in your points to it. And this is how this works. Well, Vigyan Prasar, of course, is there to do this, but if we have many more, the better would it be. The more the merrier, as we say. So on this note, thank you, Professor Tanushriji, to have me here. And once again, wishing you a very happy Independence Day. And in the coming 25 years that we talk about the Amrit Kal, I think this would certainly set standards for us to emulate and take it forward. Thank you so much. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir. स्वतंत्रता पूर्व युग में प्रसिद्ध भारतीय वैज्ञानिक पर संगोष्ठी श्रृंखला पर आधारित डॉक्यूमेंट्री फिल्म का ट्रेलर अब प्रदर्शित किया जाएगा. The trailer of the documentary film, directed by Shubha Das Mullik, science communicator of the center, and prepared based on the seminar series on illustrious Indian scientists in the pre-independence era, will now be screened.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
India is celebrating its 75th year of independence, which has been named as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, especially to celebrate the life, culture, work of the people of India during this period especially. And one of the themes in this celebration has been the contribution of scientists in India's freedom struggle. You may think that what exactly can be contribution of scientists in freedom struggle, but if we really think deeply, we find that their contribution is no way less than that of the freedom fighters who sacrificed their life for the country. The S.N. Bose Center has organized a series of talks to basically discuss the life and work of these great luminaries.
Science can afford to wait, but Swaraj cannot.
He cried on the stage, dais, after getting the note. The reason is there is no Indian flag on his chair. And in the official speech, he said, I am dedicating my Nobel Prize to the freedom fighters of India who are spending the golden time of their life in a British. And till the end of his life, every year, he gave a lecture on 2nd October in honor of Raman.
আমি যে সত্যের বসে করতে করছি দেখ যে সত্যের সবাইকে তুই বলতে জুনিয়র ছাত্রদের আমাদের মনে হতো সাহেবরা যা পারে আমরা তা পারবো না কেন বিজ্ঞানে আমরা যে সাহেবদের যে কম নই তা দেখিয়ে দিতে হবে.
You have to keep in mind that the scientists actually worked in a very adverse situation. They had to face many discrimination. In spite of that, they were very determined on their scientific endeavor to enlighten the face of their mother nation, which that time was really at the shackle of the British rule.
Professor Ray was an academic entrepreneur, first academic entrepreneur of the country, and his vision for India was progress of India and Indians can only be possible through education and economic prosperity of the masses. And therefore he founded, we all know, the Bengal Chemical and Pharmaceutical Works in 1892. P.C. Ray was a scientist, educationist, humanist, philanthropist, rationalist, and patriot all par excellence.
The first thing that I want to remember is that he was a firm believer that scientific and rational views lay the foundations of modern age. And this is what he wrote. The transformation of all the advanced or rapidly advancing countries has been brought about by the acceptance of a scientific and rational view of life and nature. This is the foundation of modern age.
And there are probably two distinguishing features between what we call Eastern science and what we call Western or modern science. And the distinguishing aspect of Western science is through designed experiments. J.C. Bose probably was the very first scientist in the Indian subcontinent to adopt that philosophy. So that's why he is called the doyen of modern science in India.
Sir J.C. Bose, when he got the job, he was given much lesser salary compared to the British professor, and he refused to it, and he didn't accept his salary until and unless it was made equal to the British professors. So that's a way of a very, very distinct way of saying that we are not going to accept any of this kind of discrimination. So scientists in their own way made a mark.
Lord Kelvin, Lord Rayleigh, all of them were there at the Royal Institution, and they congratulated J.C. Bose because this was effectively first demonstration of propagation of signals without any wires.
মেঘনাথ সাথী প্রাথমিকভাবে একজন বিজ্ঞানী, এবার কোনো সন্দেহ নেই, আপাতমস্তক একজন বিজ্ঞানী। আমরা জানি আজকে এই যে নক্ষত্রের মধ্যে যে বিক্রিয়াগুলো হয়, কি হয়? কারণ হাইড্রোজেন থেকে হিলিয়াম তৈরি হয়। এটা যদি না জানতাম যে সূর্য হাইড্রোজেন হিলিয়াম দিয়ে তৈরি, তাহলে এগুলো বোঝা সম্ভব ছিল না। কি করে জানবো তারা? বিগ ব্যাং ইত্যাদি সেগুলো ব্যাখ্যা করা সম্ভব ছিল যদি না আমরা আগেই জানতে পারতাম যে মহাবিশ্ব কি দিয়ে তৈরি। আমি কিন্তু ডার্ক ম্যাটার, ডার্ক এনার্জি বাদ রেখে বলছি, অর্ডিনারি ম্যাটার। হ্যাঁ, তাহলে এই যে সাধারণ বস্তুগুলো অর্ডিনারি ম্যাটারটা কি দিয়ে তৈরি সেটা আমাদের বলে দিল স্বাভাবিক বিষয়।
And meanwhile, Einstein himself, while he said, "I'm not in agreement with your idea," he was feverishly working on Bose's idea. So in 1924, he worked on the statistical distribution of atoms in a monatomic ideal gas, which really the only difference with what Bose's calculation is that you keep the number constant. So these are massive particles, and you get a massive boson gas. And that immediately has this phenomenon that the molecules cluster at the ground state, which is known as Bose-Einstein condensation. Now these papers were by Einstein alone, you see. No Bose in this. But Einstein was generous enough to accept that the method he was using had been discovered by Bose, but he was not going to share this glory with some obscure person from Asia whom he had never met.
Professor B.N. Jagtap, who is also our governing body chairman, and he spoke on Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray.
It's a monumental book on glorious achievement of ancient India in the field of chemical and medical sciences. He himself was an expert in Sanskrit language, and being an expert chemist, there cannot be any better combination to interpret the advances in chemical, medical, and metallurgical sciences in ancient India.
The talk on Sir Jesse Bose was given by Professor Shivaji Raha, who was the former director of Bose Institute, and having known all the details of the archive and all the great works and the instrument and every detail. So those were brought out.
The journey from physics to biology. To sum up Jesse Bose's life's contribution, and Sir Neville's quotation was repeated there, and they said that if his electromagnetic research was 60 years ahead of their times, his plant biological research was a century ahead of his times. Because many of the measurements that he had predicted are now being repeated, and there is actually a very vibrant field called consciousness in plant.
Similarly, the talk on Professor Ashima Chatterjee was given by Kali Prasanna Dhara, who was the former PhD student of Ashima Chatterjee. So therefore has seen Ashima Chatterjee from a close distance.
Linus Pauling. যখন তিনি ক্যালটেকে আছেন তখন লাইনাস পাউলিনের সঙ্গে তার পরিচয় হয়। সত্যি কথা বলতে 1967 সালে যখন পাউলিং এদেশে এসেছিলেন একটা বিশেষ বক্তৃতা দিতে, তখন তার কিছুক্ষণ 16 ঘন্টার জন্য মাত্র তিনি কলকাতায় এসেছিলেন, শুধুমাত্র অধ্যাপিকা অসীমা চট্টোপাধ্যায় এবং তার ল্যাবরেটরির ছাত্রদের সঙ্গে দেখা করবেন বলে এবং তার সঙ্গে পরিচিত হবেন বলে। সত্যি কথা বলতে মৃত্যুর 3 মাস আগেও তিনি নিয়মিত সায়েন্স কলেজের গবেষণাগারে এসেছেন, ছাত্রদের সঙ্গে ইন্টারঅ্যাক্ট করেছেন।
Even in those time, you can imagine when we were really under the rule of the British government, for a woman in this country, it would have been even more difficult, because you are discriminated in the two ways. You are discriminated because you are an Indian, and you are discriminated because you are a woman.
She was the first woman to do research in particle physics in India, and she did pioneering research on cosmic rays with so many Nature papers, and a paper which was close to Nobel Prize. And this was a pre-independent India, and she went abroad, did experimental research in a male-dominated field, and it showed exemplary courage and conviction. And it is completely a mystery that why she was so invisible and she was so hidden.
Professor Shwatendranath Bose actually was very attentive and had the idea that the science communication should be in Bengali. So the Bongyo Bigyan Parishad was instituted by him specially to have science communication in Bengali. So keeping that in mind, 3 of the talks out of these 10 talks we had in this series are in Bengali, because we felt that will be the right way to mark the respect to Professor Shwatendranath.
বাংলায় যারা বিজ্ঞান করতে পারেন না বা বোঝাতে পারেন না, তারা হয় বিজ্ঞানটি বোঝেন না, না হয় তারা বাংলা জানেন না। সেটি বহু চর্চিত একটি কথা। আর এই যে একটি লাইন, আমি সবসময় মনে করি যে আমাদের দেশের বিজ্ঞানীদের কেবল বিজ্ঞান জানলেই চলবে না, তাদের চেষ্টা চাই যারা বিজ্ঞান বোঝেন না তাদেরও বুঝিয়ে দিতে হবে।
I think the uniqueness of this series, which has had an added value, is the analysis and the perspective of this domain expert.
He was a complete product of the Bengal Renaissance. He was a mathematician, a physicist, chemist, spectroscopist. He was a great musician. He used to play the Israj. He was a great conversationalist.
He propounded this particular, or proposed, formulated a measure of distance, which is called d squared. I'm not going to give you formulas, etc., but d squared is now used in various domains of science. from manufacturing to quality control to measurement of physical differences and so on and so forth. Ultimately, it was published in the Journal of Asian Society of Bengal, and one of the most seminal papers ever, most cited papers ever in the Journal of the Asiatic Society is this particular paper.
Therefore, you have writing at the age of 19, something which I should read it out for those of young people particularly. I'm burning with the desire to do physics. Now, Paul Dirac is one of the greatest theoretical physicists of quantum era in the last century. He completed his PhD in 1935 under the guidance of Fowler. Papa returned to India in 1939. Papa is well known in physical sciences for his discovery of color scattering, still used. And of course, he was the first to propose the existence of a heavier cousin of neutron.
So this series will be beneficial to a common person who is interested about the history of Indian science, as well as to the science researchers who are keen on knowing more details about these great personalities.
They did not have money to buy a spectrograph. So he found out who is the richest man in country. The richest man was G.D. Birla. So Raman wrote a letter to G.D. Birla, and Raman was always as a monumental ego and very audacious. He said that if you give me money, I will bring the Nobel Prize in 1 year. Birla gave him the money, and he brought the Nobel Prize not in 1 year but 2 years. Okay.
Also to the school kids to know about the great fame and achievement India at one point of time has achieved even in this pre-independence era. These talks are given, it's a very nice blend of expert level science as well as very common man language of explaining those great discoveries. So I do hope it will be useful to a big community of the people of varied interests, where it will be a showcase of all the achievements of these great scientists.
When somebody asked Jesse Bose whether he felt cheated by not having got the Nobel Prize for his discovery, Jesse Bose's answer was that doesn't matter who gets the credit for it as long as the work gets done.
শেষ দিন পর্যন্ত কাজের মধ্যে ডুবে থাকতে পারি, এ আমার অন্তরের বাসনাটা পূর্ণ হয়েছিল।
1956 সালের 6 ফেব্রুয়ারি তার অবসাদ মৃত্যু ঘটে।
If he did nothing else but founded the Indian Statistical Institute, his name would be etched in the annals of science.
আজি হতে শতবর্ষ পরে কে তুমি পড়িছ বসে আমার কবিতা খানি কৌতূহল করে. So it's not 100 years yet, and it was not a poem, but it was her scientific work which I was going through, but somehow I felt an invisible bond with her.
He was undeniably the founder of quantum statistics and therefore a pioneer of a great deal of modern science. And that is enough. We shouldn't ask what Bose did afterwards. Finally, that's the formula. That's what will remain when none of us are here, when Bose is completely forgotten. This formula will remain forever. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this very inspiring screening of the trailer of the documentary film. It is a pleasure that few of the speakers who had delivered talks in this series are amongst us. I would request them to say a few words, sharing their experiences. I would start with Professor Parthopratim Majumdar, Founder, Director and Distinguished Professor, NIBG, who had delivered a talk on Prashanta Chandra Mahalanobis, an architect of statistical science and of our national development.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words. It is indeed a momentous occasion that such a documentary film be made by the S.N. Bose Center for Basic Sciences. And I personally thank Professor Tanushree Dasgupta for taking this initiative. I know that several of us gave talks throughout a long period of time on various illustrious scientists of our country. I gave the talk on Prashanta Chandra Mahalanobis, and it's really heartening to note that all of these talks have been put together, and I'm actually looking forward to viewing the entire series of talks. I've heard some of these talks given elsewhere, but I'm actually looking forward to listening and seeing this entire documentary in one go. So thank you very much, S.N. Bose Center. Thank you very much, Tanushree, for organizing this. It's indeed a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Professor Konkon Bhattacharya, Adjunct Faculty, ISRO Bhopal, who had delivered a talk on C.V. Raman and National Science Day, to say a few words.
Konkon, you are muted. Konkon, you are muted.
Professor Jagtap, Professor Tanushree Dasgupta, Professor Chandrima Saha, and Professor Parthopratim and other dignitaries, faculties and young students. At the outset, I congratulate S.N. Bose Center and particularly Professor Tanushree Dasgupta for celebrating the 75th year of India's independence in such a unique manner, and I also congratulate the team which has made this movie, and I was very inspired. Actually, this lecture series has inspired all of us, and also to remind us about the glorious tradition of research in this country and the nationalistic spirit among the scientists, and it also reminded us what we should do as a scientist to make this country great. I think the greatest expectations of the country is from the students who will be the future and who will be here on the 100th anniversary. And as you have seen that just a few years before independence, our scientific leaders and political leaders worked hand in hand to produce many institutions, not only for basic science but also for applied science, which will give direct benefit to the common public. Professor Chandrima Saha and our DST secretary is the product of CSIR. CSIR was created exactly 80 years ago in 1942, 5 years before independence. 1946 we had TIFR and then atomic energy, Professor Jagtap is there. And we also had Amul, which produced the milk revolution. And there was a committee set up in 1946 for the new kind of institutes called IITs. This committee's vision was that the IITs will produce creative scientists and engineers with broad human outlook and with creative initiatives to future situations. I think in the post-independence period, the most important event in which India was saved by science and technology is the Green Revolution. We all know in 1960s we had a severe food crisis. India had to import wheat from US at a subsidized price, and it was stored in a godown in New Memorial Road. But very soon, under the leadership of Swaminathan, hybrid seeds were introduced and India became self-sufficient in food. And after 3 years, we did not need this PL 480 godown. What happened to the PL 480 godown? Indira Gandhi created the Science Department of Science and Technology, and it was housed in the same building. Then there was many other things. We were we were informally chatting about the research in fish, which is called the Blue Revolution, which was initiated by Bengali scientist Hiralal Chaudhary. And there are many other instances you will see. We can discuss. But today, I felt a little sad to read the Times of India, and there was a two-page advertisement by Amul. It collected Amul always produces some very catchy poster on some very relevant current event. In 1978, they picked up this test tube baby, which was produced under the supervision of Dr. Subhash Mukherjee. But the contemporary Bengali doctors conspired against him, tortured him, and he finally committed suicide in 1981. And if he was alive, the 2010 Nobel Prize, which was given to test tube baby, Professor Subhash Mukherjee would have been a serious contender. I do not want to end my talk on a pessimistic note. I just want to say that all the young people and young faculties, you will be very famous through your own merit, your hard work, and I hope you will never feel any hindrance like Subhash Mukherjee had from anywhere, from institute or general public or Indian government or foreign government. Finally, I wish you a glorious 75 years of Indian independence and a glorious march towards the 100th century of Indian independence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I request Professor Shibaji Raha, Raja Ramanna Fellow Bose Institute, who is amongst us today, to say a few words.
Thank you. I just want to say a few words, putting on record my appreciation of being asked to be here today. This is indeed a very important occasion, momentous occasion, and I'm very glad to be a part of it. For the younger generation who would be around 25 years later at the end of this Amrit Kal, I have only one quotation to repeat from J.C. Bose's lectures. Namely, J.C. Bose, when he founded Bose Institute in 1917, which happens to be the oldest institution in all of Asia, all of the Indian subcontinent, dedicated to full-time research, scientific research. He gave an inaugural address which is, in my opinion, a must-read for every educated Indian. He concluded his lecture by saying that we stop here today and begin our work tomorrow so that through our united efforts, we can bring about the greater India yet to be. 100 years later, that greater India yet to be remains still to be achieved. Fortunately, as Dr. Chandrasekhar mentioned at the very beginning, that the technological advances has reduced the gap between the East and the West to a large extent. For example, people who are in scientific research used to have a tremendous handicap, even until 20 or 30 years ago, at the non-availability of journals, books, and all other kinds of scientific equipments. All of those difficulties have been alleviated to a large extent, not entirely yet, but through our efforts to bring about this greater India yet to be, I think we don't have too many excuses anymore, but we can emulate our predecessors whose examples we heard about and which will be even discussed in greater detail in this film. I think this hope of our founders that the greater India yet to be can be achieved through our united efforts, I am more optimistic than before, and by looking at the young faces in the audience, I think that hope is justified. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now request Professor Gautam Gangopadhyay, Professor, University of Calcutta and Secretary, Bongio Bigyan Parishad, to say a few lines.
Respected dignitaries, online and offline, colleagues here, students, ladies and gentlemen. It was indeed a great pleasure to be here, and I'm really honored. Had I known that my talk would have been part of this film, then perhaps I would have frozen here, because, okay, I am looking at people who have been respected for a long time, and I'm sharing screen time with them. Now, one important part of this endeavor, I would say, is that we can perhaps, these type of films and other books and other things, they can enthuse our students to take up science. Only the other day, we were discussing in our department, I was discussing with a colleague, that, okay, some of our scientists, like Shah, Bhabha, and others, P.C. Ray, they created schools, and Bose didn't. Why? What is the difference? But my colleague told me that, look, we must not think of these people just in terms of their direct students. Look around us. We have seen students, young students, I teach in a university, and I have seen young students taking up physics, taking up science, because they read the life of Bose, they read the life of Saha, they read the life of Bhabha, Raman, and they were enthused to take up science. So that is important. It's, of course, the young people, young students here, who are going to lead our nation for the next 25 years, and I'm sure I'm pretty sure they will do a better work than us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. May I now request Mrs. Shubha Das Mullik, Science Communicator of the Center, to share her experience in making this lecture series on eminent and well-known scientists of the pre-independence era into a documentary format.
Yeah, good evening, friends here and friends online as well as here in this hall. It was indeed a great honor to be entrusted with this responsibility of compiling the 10 lectures into a series of 11, including the one that you saw, into a series of 11 lectures, which have, I think, gone online by now, so they are in the public domain, so everybody can enjoy that. So these last 1.5 months have been an exhilarating and heady experience for me to go through the lectures again and again and take a difficult decision that which portions to leave out, which portions to take, to get appropriate images as well as videos that will go with the substance of the talk, maybe at some points create some visuals, some simple animations, etc., and compile the whole thing into a series of 11 lectures. And I can assure you that the original lectures are also there on YouTube, and each of the lectures is a gold mine. Not only because of the physics which has been brought out in such a lucid way, but also because of the human interest, the human values that have come out in all the lectures. And every lecture has got such interesting moments, and I am a documentary filmmaker, so I'm itching to make actually documentaries on so many things. For example, in the S.N. Bose lecture, which was the first in the series, I'm itching to make a short documentary film, which I would like to title The Factor of Two. And this will be on the nuanced relationship between S.N. Bose and Einstein. So like that, there are these absolute gold mines in all the lectures. In the lecture on J.C. Bose, I was absolutely floored when Professor Shivaji Raha said that on one particular anniversary of the institute, Bose Institute, a foreigner came and he was looking around and spending a lot of time in the archive, and then finally in the visitor's book, when he saw the visitor's book, it was actually Marconi's grandson, and who had said that after going through everything, now I know that J.C. Bose should have got the Nobel Prize instead of my grandfather. So that was really a twist in the story of J.C. Bose's life, which I came to know. Similarly, C.V. Raman. That Professor Kankan Bhattacharya gave the lecture on C.V. Raman. So he said that Raman effect was discovered in a black hole. So what does that mean? So it simply means that initially he didn't have the money to buy a spectrometer, so he and Krishnan used to go into a dark room, get his eyes adjusted to the darkness, and then see the diffracted light, which is slightly different in color, through the naked eye. And then he arm twisted G.D. Birla and got a spectroscope for himself and did a proper measurement and then wrote the paper. So all these things, and then of course the whole story of Bibha Chaudhury's life. So it's a full-fledged, full-length documentary film is crying to be made on Bibha Chaudhury's life. So as a documentary filmmaker, and there is so much of substance in all the lectures to make some interesting films which would capture the imagination of the students and anybody interested in science. Now these series of lectures which have gone online, so I hope they reach the right audience. I am also telling science teachers in different schools and colleges to view these videos and share with the students, maybe show in class and discuss some aspects of the scientific principles that have been explained here. And I am very hopeful that in the long run, these videos will go a long way in igniting minds of youngsters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. So we are now nearing the concluding session of the program. I request Dr. Shuman Chakraborty, Associate Professor and Chairman Media Cell of the Center, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Good evening,
everybody. It's indeed a great honor and privilege to be able to deliver this formal vote of thanks in front of all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Srivari Chandrasekhar, Honorable Secretary, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, for being with us today despite his busy schedule and for his encouraging words. We thank Professor B.N. Jagtap, Chairman, Governing Body, SNB, NCBS, Kolkata, Professor IIT Bombay. We thank Professor Chandrima Saha, President INSA, and also J.C. Bose, Distinguished Chair Professor. Dr. Nakul Parashar, Director, Vigyan Prashar. We are thankful to all of them for being with us today, for accepting our invitation, and for all of their thoughtful messages. We thank Vigyan Prashar for telecasting today's event, which is very useful. We are fortunate to have some of the distinguished speakers of the lecture series with us today. We thank Professor Partho Mujumdar, Professor Kankon Bhattacharya, Professor Shivaji Raha, and Professor Gautam Gangopadhyay for being with us today and for their kind words. We must thank everyone associated with making of the documentary film on the illustrious Indian scientists in pre-independence era. First of all, we thank our director, Professor Tanushree Saha Dasgupta, for conceiving this idea of this lecture series, and followed by the idea of making of this the film, and for her continuous guidance throughout this process. We thank the director of the film, Mrs. Shubhadash Mullik, for the wonderful planning and execution to create such an excellent film. And as all of you would agree, a good documentary film should not only have just dry information, but a good film should have a lot of creative aspects to it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the full film as you have enjoyed the trailer. And we also thank all of our team members, including the editor of the film, Mr. Rohan Bhattacharya, and the cameraman, Mr. Ranodeep Bhomik, among others. We thank all the faculty members and the administrative staff members of the center who have been associated with the organization of the lecture series and also this filmmaking process, and also for organizing today's event beautifully. We thank all the members of the Seminar and Colloquium Organization Committee, SCOLP, Media Cell, Computer Services Cell for their support. And in particular, I would like to thank Mr. Rupam Porel for creating the publicity materials. It's very aesthetically done. All the flyers of the lecture series and also the poster of this today's event. You can see some of this beautiful artwork is based on the poster made by Mr. Porel. And last but not the least, we must thank all the distinguished speakers of the lecture series, because the film would not have been possible without their lectures. The documentary film has been made primarily based on their lectures and the content of their presentations. So we gratefully acknowledge the series of excellent lectures by Professor Shirup Raichoudhury, Professor B.N. Jagtap, Professor Gautam Gangopadhyay, Professor Srubhavati Goswami, Professor Kankon Bhattacharya, Professor Shivaji Raha, Professor Partho P. Mujumdar, Professor Bikash C. Sinha, Dr. Kaliprashanna Dhara, and Professor Ranjit Bishwas. And finally, I thank, on behalf of all of us, we thank all of you for your active participation in today's curtain raiser ceremony and for your active support. And we hope that you would enjoy watching the documentary film as much as we have enjoyed creating the film. Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of this program. Thank you very much for being with us today evening. I now request you all to join us for high tea, which will be served outside. Thank you.